I get home from work at 6:45 p.m., same as always. I work front desk at a logistics firm. It's not glamorous, but it's stable, and it pays enough to cover my part of the rent, some savings, and the occasional overpriced iced coffee on stressful days. The house is quiet when I walk in, just the low hum of the dryer in the back hallway. My shoulders ache, my feet are sore, and I can already feel the tension building between my eyebrows. I drop my bag by the entryway and head straight for the laundry room, and there it is, Haley's laundry. Again, not just in the basket, not just one or two shirts, a whole load, still damp, tangled up in itself like it's been waiting for me, because it has. I stare at the pile for a second. A part of me still hopes absurdly that she'll come running down the hall and say, "Oh shoot, I was going to take care of that." But she doesn't. She never does. I take a breath, shake out one of her sweaters, and start folding. This has been the routine for months. Maybe years, if I'm being honest. Haley is 4 years younger than me. She's a junior in college, lives at home to save money, takes 3 classes, and spends most of her time in her room watching TikToks or asking mom for money to buy just a few things online. I, on the other hand, wake up at 6:30 every morning, work a full day, sometimes overtime, come home, and still, somehow, find myself doing her laundry, cooking her dinner, scraping her dishes, taking out the trash she forgets. When I mention it, Mom says, "She's still growing. She needs support. Or worse, you're just better at handling things." Translation: Ava is responsible, so let's pile more on. That night, I'm folding the second batch of Haley's laundry when Mom walks in. She's scrolling on her phone and carrying an empty teacup. "Oh, by the way," she says, "can you remember to hang her white blouses? Don't put them in the dryer, they'll shrink." I pause. Why can't she do it herself? Mom gives me a look like I just asked why the sky is blue. Because she's got a midterm tomorrow. I stare at her. I had a 12-hour day. Mom shrugs. "You're older, you get it." I don't answer. I just nod and keep folding. The ache in my back deepens. The skin under my eyes feels tight from fatigue. The resentment sits just under my ribcage, coiled and pulsing. Later, I'm in the kitchen reheating pasta when Mom walks back in, now casually sipping water. She leans against the counter and says, "You should start thinking about moving out. It's time to grow up." I blink. It takes me a second to process. She says it so lightly, like she's suggesting I buy new shoes or try a different brand of toothpaste. I set my fork down. "What? You're 24, Ava. You've got a good job. Don't you think it's time?" I stare at her. "Grow up?" I echo, voice rising despite myself. While I'm still doing my 20-year-old sister's laundry? Her face twists, not with guilt, just mild irritation. "Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying you're at that age. It's normal." "No," I say slowly. "What's not normal is that being told I need to move out and grow up while still being treated like the live-in maid." Mom straightens up, crossing her arms. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" My voice is shaking now, but not because I'm scared, because I've reached a breaking point I didn't know I was near. I pay rent. I work full-time. I do half the chores, most of Haley's, and I don't complain. And instead of appreciation, I get a lecture? "You live here, Ava," she says firmly. "You benefit too." I nod, laughing dryly. "Sure, I benefit. I get to hear how much pressure Haley is under, how tired she is from 3 classes a week, how she needs help, while I'm the one with the alarm set for 6 a.m. She exhales like she's losing patience. "We all pitch in, Ava." "No," I say. "I pitch in." Haley exists. Silence. That's when I see it. Not guilt, not reflection, just frustration. She doesn't want to fight. She wants me to be quiet, to fold the clothes, to eat dinner, to nod and smile and not make this hard. That's been my role for so long. I don't think she even sees me as a person anymore. Just a function, a fixture, the one who gets things done without needing anything in return. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me. I replay her words over and over. It's time to grow up. And the irony of it slices through me like glass. Because I did grow up. I grew up at 12 when I started cooking dinner on nights she worked late. I grew up at 16 when Haley had a meltdown and Mom asked me to cancel my weekend plans to babysit her. I grew up when I took on the role of second parent without anyone asking if I was ready. So yeah, I've grown up. The only thing I haven't done is leave. But I'm starting to think that might be next. When I was 8, I knew how to scramble eggs without supervision. By 9, I could load the dishwasher, fold laundry, and help Haley with her reading homework. By 10, I was the one Mom called when she was running late from work. Make sure Haley eats something, and please check her homework. I never complained, not because I didn't want to, but because I thought that's just what big sisters did. Haley cried easily. She got overwhelmed by loud noises, hated crowded rooms, and refused to eat anything green. At school pickup, she clung to Mom like a shadow, and Mom would smile, stroke her hair, and whisper, "It's okay, baby, you're just sensitive." That word followed Haley everywhere. Sensitive. It was used like a pass, like a protective bubble. When she refused to clean her toys, she's sensitive. She doesn't respond well to pressure. When she yelled at me for touching her crayons, she's sensitive. Ava, just let it go. Meanwhile, I was the big girl, the one who understands things better, the one who is expected to adjust, compromise, accommodate. She's younger, Ava. She doesn't know any better. She's having a hard day. Be patient. You're so good at that. It wasn't that they didn't love me. I'm sure they did, in the way parents love their responsible child, the one who makes their lives easier. But love, I learned, didn't always feel like a warmth. Sometimes it felt like being invisible in plain sight. I remember one day in 4th grade I got an award at school, most improved in math. I was proud of it. Math had always been hard for me. I clutched the certificate all the way home, beaming. When I got to the kitchen, Mom was wiping Haley's face with a cool cloth. She had a stomach ache. Again. She was lying on the couch, curled up dramatically with her stuffed bunny beside her. "Look," I said, holding out the paper. "I got this today." Mom glanced over, smiled distractedly. "That's great, honey." And then she turned back to Haley. "Do you want the toast or crackers?" That was it. I held the paper for a while longer, then I folded it in half, then again, and slid it into the drawer by the phone. It stayed there for months. When we were teenagers, the gap only widened. Haley got to stay home from school if she had a headache. I had to go unless I was vomiting. If she missed an assignment, Mom would email the teacher. If I forgot something, I got, "You should know better by now." She was the delicate one, the emotional one, the one Mom posted long captions about on Facebook. My sweet, gentle girl, so proud of her heart. And me? I was the one behind the scenes, helping set the table, carrying groceries, quietly folding the laundry while they scrolled through their phones. I told myself it was okay, that I didn't need the attention, that being strong was better. But I was just a kid, too. And somewhere along the way, I learned that my value didn't come from being seen. It came from being useful. I was good at school, not because I was a genius or because I loved it, but because I thought being good would make things easier. At home, at least. Straight A's, perfect attendance, quiet in class, polite with teachers. I colored inside the lines, literally and metaphorically. While other kids got into trouble for skipping homework, I stayed up late triple-checking mine just to avoid giving anyone a reason to be disappointed. At first I thought that would earn me something. Recognition, maybe. Pride. But instead, it earned me expectations. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked if I liked the classes I was taking or if I felt overwhelmed. It was just assumed. Ava's fine. She always is. If I cried, it was overreacting. If Haley cried, it was her being sensitive again. If I struggled with something, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. If Haley struggled, it was probably too much pressure for her. There was no room for me to falter. I remember one night when I was 12, I'd had a rough week. 2 big tests, a group project where I did all the work, and a fight with a friend. I was quiet at dinner, barely eating. Mom asked, "Can you help Haley with her book report after this?" I hesitated for a moment and said, "I'm really tired." She didn't skip a beat. "You're the older one. She needs your help." I nodded, got up, did the dishes, then sat down next to Haley even though my head was pounding. It became automatic, saying yes, even when I meant no. Being helpful, even when I was running on empty, because that was the narrative. Em con no, con lachi, fai guang mao. Haley was allowed to have bad days. She could snap, roll her eyes, shut her door, even scream at Mom when she didn't want to go to school. The worst that happened was a sigh, maybe a gentle talk after she calmed down. I never tried. I didn't test the boundary. I knew better. I had internalized this idea that my worth came from being low maintenance. The better I behaved, the more invisible I became. but I kept trying. I took advanced classes, brought home honor roll certificates, helped organize school events. I kept chasing that look, where a parent beams at their child like they've done something worth being proud of. But I never got it. Not really. The praise came in passing. Of course Ava did well, she always does. Or worse, can't you be more like Ava? A phrase I came to resent because it didn't mean I was loved. It meant I was used. Eventually I stopped expecting anything. I did well because I didn't know what else to do. I was afraid of failing, not just for my own sake, but because I felt like I wasn't allowed to. Failing meant attention, and attention meant scrutiny. So I disappeared into achievement, quiet, tidy, consistent, a ghost in a gold star costume. It was a Thursday, one of those gray, dragging days where even the air felt heavy. Work had been a mess. 2 clients canceled last minute, the printer jammed, and my coworker forgot to forward me a time-sensitive email, meaning I had to fix someone else's mistake while skipping lunch. By the time I got home, my body ached in that quiet, deep way that wasn't pain exactly, just depletion. All I wanted was a hot shower, silence, and maybe 15 minutes to close my eyes before facing the evening. Instead, I walked into the laundry room and saw it. A mountain of Haley's clothes spilling out of the hamper, crumpled on the floor. A familiar sight, a familiar weight settling on my shoulders the second I saw it. Bra straps tangled, a sock halfway inside a hoodie, towels that smelled like they'd been damp too long. I stood there for a second, staring at the mess, my bag still slung over one shoulder, my keys still in my hand, and something in me cracked, not with anger, but exhaustion. She's 20. 20. How's it still my job to clean up after her? Before I could decide whether to deal with it or not, Mom walked by the hallway and stopped, seeing me standing over the pile. She had a long day, she said, as if reading my mind. Can you help her out? I turned slowly. So did I. Mom blinked like that possibility hadn't occurred to her. Yes, but you're better at managing stress. You always have been. I let out a breath that sounded like a laugh but wasn't. She's in her room watching Netflix, I said. Meanwhile, I just got home from a 10-hour shift. Why is her comfort always more important than mine? She's been studying for her midterms, Mom replied, as if I hadn't spoken. You know how anxious she gets. Mom, I said, voice steady but low. I work full-time, I pay rent, I do my own chores, and half the time I end up doing hers, too. Why is that just assumed? Because you've always been the responsible one, she said, exasperated now, like I was picking a fight out of nowhere. And she's had a lot on her plate lately. What's the big deal? The big deal? The big deal is that this is never a one-time thing. The big deal is that every time I say no, or even hesitate, I'm the problem. I'm selfish. I'm difficult. I'm making things harder than they need to be. The big deal is that I'm tired. Tired of being the default. The fallback. The one expected to give more, bend more, carry more. And I was starting to see, clearly, painfully, that they weren't going to stop asking unless I stopped saying yes. I had a 9-hour shift, I said again, more firmly this time. Why is her comfort always more important than mine? Mom blinked at me, arms still crossed like a shield. Why are you being selfish? The word hit harder than I expected. Selfish. I opened my mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, because something in me refused to stay silent this time. I'm not selfish, I said, and this time my voice cracked, not with rage, but with a kind of tired that seeps into your bones. I'm exhausted. Silence. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind that leads to apology or realization, just the kind that makes you feel like a radio playing in an empty room. Mom stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't either. I just asked for a little help, she said, like I was the one escalating. No, I said. You expected help, without asking, again, like always. And the second I say something, suddenly I'm the bad guy. She scoffed. Don't be dramatic, Ava. We're all tired. We all pitch in. Really? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because I don't see anyone else folding her underwear, or picking up after her, or cooking dinner 4 nights a week. I don't even live in this house the way she does, but somehow I'm the one cleaning up after everyone. She's your sister, Mom said, A final note in her voice like that should end the conversation. "I'm aware," I replied, "but I didn't sign up to be her maid." Dad walked in at that exact moment. Perfect timing, as always. He had a knack for arriving just as the tension peaked, never early enough to witness what caused it. He looked between us. "What's going on?" "She's upset about laundry," Mom said flatly, like it was the most ridiculous thing to raise your voice over. I turned to him. "It's not about the laundry." Dad raised his eyebrows but didn't respond, just walked past me and opened the fridge. And that was the second blow. Not words, but absence of them. Not disagreement, but indifference. I wasn't worth addressing. Not worth the trouble of stepping into conflict. Not worth even asking what I meant when I said I was exhausted. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my heart pounding in my ears while they moved around me like I was part of the furniture. Then Haley came down the hallway, earbuds in, phone in hand. She paused when she saw me standing by the laundry room. "Oh," she said, mildly annoyed. "Did you finish the towels?" I stared at her, too stunned to answer. "Because I need them tonight." "Can you not leave them wet in the machine again?" My throat tightened. "They're your towels." She blinked. "Okay." "Geez." She turned on her heel and went back to her room without another word. I went upstairs, closed my door, sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the blank wall across from me, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt angry. Not the sharp, explosive kind, not the kind that burns, but the slow, steady heat that builds quietly, the kind that sits in your gut and says, "This isn't okay anymore," because I wasn't wrong, I wasn't being selfish, I wasn't blowing things out of proportion, I was just done. Done being the one who could be relied on because it was convenient. Done having my fatigue erased by someone else's convenience. Done being treated like a utility instead of a human being. And the worst part? It had become so normal. I hadn't even noticed how heavy it all was until it started breaking me. I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep. My chest felt heavy, like something old and unnamed was pressing down on me. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the words again. "Why are you being selfish?" And I couldn't help but think, if asking for rest, for space, for boundaries made me selfish, what did that make the people who never asked what I needed? The next morning, no one brought it up. Mom acted like nothing happened. She asked if I wanted coffee, and Dad said something about the weather. Haley had already left for class. Her towels mysteriously vanished from the machine, and just like that, it was all erased. But I didn't forget. I carried it with me through the whole day, through every email, every meeting, every forced smile. I couldn't unhear what was said, or unsay what wasn't. And somewhere between pretending everything was fine and faking a laugh in the break room, I had a thought I couldn't shake. If this is adulthood, why does it feel like servitude? I didn't storm out, I didn't scream, I didn't write a dramatic text in the group chat, I just stopped folding Haley's laundry. The first time it sat untouched in the washer, Mom didn't say anything. Maybe she assumed I was busy, that I'd get to it later. But the second time? She noticed. She found me in the hallway, folding my own clothes, and glanced toward the washer. "Haley's clothes are still in there." "Yeah," I said simply. "I'm not doing them." She blinked, caught off guard. "You always do." "I'm not anymore." The silence stretched. Her eyebrows lifted like she couldn't believe she had heard me right. "Why not?" I met her eyes. "Because I don't want to." She stared at me like I'd just said something outrageous. "Ava, that's not how things work in this house." I folded a towel. Maybe they should. That night at dinner, the energy was thick, heavy. Haley picked at her salad like someone had personally wronged her lettuce. Mom didn't speak until halfway through the meal. "It's not a big deal to help your sister, you know. We all make sacrifice for family." That word again. Sacrifices. I set my fork down. "I think I've made enough of those." "Excuse me?" she said sharply. "I've been helping her for years, without being asked, without thanks, while managing my own job and life. And the one time I stop, suddenly I'm selfish? We never said selfish." "You didn't have to," I said, voice level but firm. "It's in the way you talk to me, the way you expect me to always pick up the slack without question, like it's my role, my identity." "You live here," Mom snapped. "You benefit too." "I pay rent, I buy my own food, I do my own cleaning." "And for years we helped you," she fired back. "We all made sacrifices when you were little. That's what family does." So let me get this straight, I said. Helping me as a child was a sacrifice, but me helping you now is a responsibility? She flinched. Don't twist my words. I'm not twisting them. I'm finally hearing them clearly. Haley, sitting across the table, finally chimed in. God, Ava, it's just laundry. Why do you have to make everything so intense? Because it's never just laundry, I said, looking at her. It's years of being the fallback, the fixer, the one who gets the least and is expected to give the most. And when I stop, I'm punished for it. Punished? Mom said. You're not being punished. You're being dramatic. No, I said, standing up slowly. I'm being honest. For the first time. The next morning, no one spoke to me. Mom passed me in the kitchen without a word. Haley didn't come out of her room. There was no confrontation, just silence, heavy, condemning. But it didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel free, because for the first time I wasn't folding away my boundaries, I was unfolding myself. I started therapy the same way I start most things in life, quietly, efficiently, without asking permission. There wasn't a big breakdown or a sleepless night that pushed me there. Just a moment of clarity. A moment where I thought, if I don't figure out who I am outside of what they expect from me, I'm never going to breathe properly again. So I made an appointment. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't ready for the questions, or worse, the dismissals. My therapist didn't ask for my whole life story right away. She just let me talk. And I did. About laundry, about being the good sister, about how I hadn't really felt seen in years. And she didn't say, well, that's just how families are. She didn't tell me to be grateful, she said. That sounds like an incredibly heavy role for a child to grow up carrying. It was the first time I felt like someone actually named it, what had been slowly suffocating me for years. The caretaker, the bridge, the emotional shock absorber. She asked, when do you get to be human? I didn't have an answer. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing how I moved through life, how often I said it's fine when it wasn't, how I apologized for taking up space, for not saying yes fast enough, how I twisted myself into something softer, more manageable, just to keep the peace. I wasn't living, I was performing, and I was tired. So I opened a spreadsheet. I listed out expenses, rent, food, utilities. It felt overwhelming, like trying to plan an escape from a life I was only just realizing had been built entirely on guilt. But I kept going. I asked a coworker how she found her apartment. I browsed listings on my lunch break. I bookmarked budgeting blogs and made mock budgets in my notes app. Every time I imagined telling my mom I was moving out, I felt a twist in my stomach. But I also felt something else, something like hope. I found the place on a Wednesday afternoon, a one-bedroom apartment 10 minutes from work. Nothing fancy, just clean walls, quiet neighbors, and a little windows over the sink where light poured in like a promise. I signed the lease on Friday. The landlord handed me the keys and said, "Congratulations," like it was a milestone. And it was. Not just because I was moving out, but because I was finally moving toward myself. I told them over dinner, no dramatic lead-up, just, I found a place. I'll be moving out next month. Mom's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Haley blinked at me like I'd spoken a different language. Dad didn't look up from his phone. What do you mean you found a place? Mom asked, slow and sharp. I signed a lease. It's near work. It's small, but it's mine. Haley snorted. God, you're so dramatic. I stayed calm. I'm not being dramatic. I'm just choosing peace. Mom leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. So that's it? You're just leaving? After everything we've done for you? There it was. The guilt grenade. I'm not leaving you, I said. I'm leaving the role you put me in. I can't be the fixer forever. Mom scoffed. We all made sacrifices, Ava. No, I said, voice steady. You raised me. That was your job. Just like I raised myself emotionally. That wasn't mine. You've changed, she said, quieter now. No, I said. I've finally stopped pretending. Dad finally looked up. Just make sure you can handle it. Don't come running back when it gets hard. It stung. Not because he doubted me, but because it showed he'd never really seen me. If he had, he'd know I've always handled it. That night I packed quietly. No one offered to help. No one came into my room. No one said they were proud or happy or sad. Just nothing. The absence of care was confirmation. But that didn't break me. It freed me. On move-in day, I didn't cry. I didn't doubt myself. I carried the boxes up 3 flights of stairs and unrolled a cheap rug I bought online. I hung fairy lights. I stocked the fridge with things I liked. And when I sat on my new couch that night, alone in the silence, I wasn't lonely. I was safe. I was mine. And for the first time in years, I breathed all the way out. The apartment was small, but it was mine. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, walls that needed an artwork, a slightly uneven floor in the hallway, but every inch of it felt like a soft exhale after years of holding my breath. The first night I slept there, I didn't wake up once. No doors slamming, no someone yelling from down the hall, no chores calling my name, just stillness, a rest. The kind that didn't feel earned through exhaustion, but offered, simply because I existed. I got to choose what I ate, what time I got up, whether I played music while folding laundry or sat in silence with a cup of tea. I didn't have to apologize for being tired, or quiet, or happy for no reason. It was quiet freedom. But it was everything. On weekends, I walked to a nearby park and sit by the fountain with a sketchbook. I hadn't drawn since high school when I used to doodle in the margins of my notebooks, only to hear, "That's not a real skill," from someone at home. Now, I drew whatever I wanted. Flowers, buildings, Haley's face sometimes, not out of bitterness but curiosity, trying to understand who she was when I wasn't the one cleaning up after her. Some nights I'd play guitar in my living room, barefoot and messy-haired, not caring if I sounded good, just letting the chords carry the weight out of me. I wrote more too. Journal entries, ideas for ad campaigns, even silly poems. I didn't have to be useful, just honest. Work started shifting too. I was originally hired in the marketing department mostly to schedule social media posts and write email copy, but after a few weeks of pitching visual ideas in meetings, my boss pulled me aside. "You've got a good eye," she said. "Ever thought about creative direction?" Within a month, I was helping the design team develop campaign concepts, color palettes, mood boards, visual storytelling, things that had always come naturally to me, but that I'd never seen as valuable before. Being seen for my creativity, without needing to beg for attention, was new. And it lit something in me. I started reconnecting with people I hadn't spoken to in years. A college friend, Mia, messaged me after seeing one of my design mock-ups shared online. "Still the most emotionally intelligent person I know," she wrote. We met for coffee, then again, then brunch. Then one night, we stayed up talking in my living room until 1 a.m., trading stories we were too afraid to tell back when we were both performing perfection. She introduced me to a book club, a queer artist collective, a friend group that didn't flinch when someone cried, or needed space or canceled plans because they were just tired. There was no need to justify my needs, no pressure to be the fixer. They didn't love me because I held everything together. They loved me because I let go. My birthday came in early fall. It was the first one I'd spent alone by choice. No family dinner where I smiled through an off-brand grocery cake. No passive-aggressive cards from Mom that said "proud of you," but left out why. I woke up that morning and opened the windows. The breeze smelled like dried leaves and something almost sweet. I went to a florist and picked out my favorite flowers, peach-colored ranunculus and wild baby's breath. I bought a small cake with raspberry cream filling. I took my time browsing candles until I found one that smelled like bergamot and quiet mornings. Back at my apartment, I set everything up just the way I liked, and then I wrote myself a card. To the version of me that never got asked what she wanted, I wrote, "You're free now." And for once, I didn't cry from sadness. I cried from arrival, from finally becoming someone I recognized. It started with a ping. A coworker sent me a link to a local magazine's feature article, "Young Creatives Reshaping Brand Storytelling." There I was. Second profile on the list, a full photo of me standing in front of one of our campaign mood boards, arms crossed, confident. The quote beneath my name read, "Sometimes, the best stories start when you stop asking for permission." I hadn't told anyone it was coming out, but someone else had seen it. Because 3 hours later, Mom shared the article on Facebook with a caption that made my stomach twist. "So proud of our Ava, she's always been so driven." Hashtag #, my girl #, and family first #, blessed. It had 8 comments within the hour. Family friends saying things like, "She's always been the mature one," and "You must be so proud." She replied to every single one. She didn't tag me, didn't message me, didn't say a word to me directly, just broadcasted a version of me that made her look like a good mother. The irony was almost funny. The same woman who once told me I was being selfish for needing rest, now reposting my achievements like they were hers to celebrate. The next day, Haley messaged me for the first time in months. Haley, saw your feature. You should come home for dinner sometime. We miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just pick up where we left off, as if I hadn't quietly bled out behind the laundry room door all those years. I didn't reply. Later that week, a text from Mom came through. Mom, let's start over. Things were tough back then. I was under a lot of pressure, but I never stopped loving you. I read it 3 times. The first read confusion, the second disbelief, the third clarity. There it was. Not an apology, just a plea for amnesia. Let's start over? As if we hadn't already started over 100 times. As if each fresh beginning hadn't come at the cost of me swallowing my hurt and doing the emotional labor no one else would touch. As if silence was a fair price for peace. But I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I wasn't cold. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even tempted to reply with a carefully worded monologue. I was just done. Done explaining what hurt. Done shrinking my wounds into language soft enough not to scare them. Done translating silence into forgiveness. I lit a candle that night, the bergamot one, poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony and watched the lights flicker on across the city. And I thought about how strange it was that for so long I'd only felt valuable when I was useful, that I mistook tolerance for love, that I let someone else's discomfort define how loud I was allowed to be, but not anymore. I didn't need Mom to understand. I didn't need Haley to change. I didn't need them to rewrite the story, because I'd already written my own. They kept trying now and then. A text from Haley every few weeks. Hope you're doing okay. Miss your banana bread. A message from Mom on holidays. Thinking of you. Let's reconnect soon. Always sweet, always surface level, never deep enough to touch the root. I let them sit unread. Not out of cruelty, but because I'd spent too much of my life answering calls that never asked who I really was. My new life was quieter, but it was mine. Sunday mornings meant farmers markets and fresh lavender. Wednesday nights meant creative meetings where people listened when I spoke. My apartment wasn't always clean. I still cried some nights. I still felt the ghost of duty tug at my spine when I saw dishes piling up or socks on the floor. But now I could say, that's not my responsibility. And no one called me selfish. I called it healing. On the anniversary of my move-in date, I opened the old family group chat, just once. The last message was from my dad, a thumbs-up emoji on a forwarded chain meme. 8 months ago. I left the chat. No announcement, no explanation. I closed the app and never opened it again. That night I wrote one final note to myself. Not in anger, not in spite, but as a promise. You told me to grow up while handing me someone else's mess. Now I've grown up and stopped cleaning up what was never mine.